Good afternoon, good evening, and perhaps even good morning. My name is Clodagh Beattie, and today I'm going to be talking to you about emotional salary and how you can use emotional salary as a framework for more fulfillment at work. So I'm going to start off today by talking about what is emotional salary. I'm going to share some information with you about some research that we've undertaken and the 10 factors of emotional salary we discovered from our research. Then I'm going to move on and talk about why the awareness of emotional salary is so important. And then I'd like you to grab a pen and a piece of paper, because I'd like to share an activity with you about how you can gain more awareness of your emotional salary and how you can use that as a tool to improve your fulfillment. And finally, I want to share with you a process that you can use to take that awareness and move it into action and increase your emotional salary and your fulfillment at work. So I'd like to start with this question: why do you work? Now, the immediate response many people would give to this question is for the money, of course, but is that really true? Now, obviously, you need to be earning a fair and reasonable salary, and that was something that Raj mentioned earlier today in his presentation. But I think there is more to it than money, and if you look at the reason why people leave jobs, money is often not the reason. So if we take money out of the equation, why do you do what you do? Is it the opportunity to use your creativity or collaborate with others? Is it about the connections you have with others, or perhaps the positive impact you know you can have on other people's lives through your work? That why is our emotional salary. The emotional drivers that lead us to feel happy or fulfilled at work. Those things that contribute to our emotional well-being at work. Now, curiosity about that particular question, why do you work, is what prompted my research partner, Marissa Lazundia, to start thinking about emotional salary. And that led us to investigating what were the non-financial or emotional benefits people gain from their work. Now, as individuals, we don't often think about why we work, certainly not on a deep level. But the problem with that is if we don't pay enough attention to the why, we're probably not making the most of our working lives. How can we prioritize our fulfillment and well-being if we don't know why we work? Now, we're all unique individuals, and everyone's why is different. You and I could both have the same job, and what I value most about it may be completely different to what you value most. And this is something that's really important for those who lead teams or organizations to take into account. What is it that your people value most about their work? Do you know, or do you just make assumptions? Now, when we started our research, we were familiar with the term emotional salary. It wasn't a new term, but we couldn't find a clear definition. What we noticed was that everyone was using this term differently, and there were lots of examples that included benefits like gym membership or restaurant vouchers, childcare vouchers. And although we could see that these benefits were really important, they had a monetary value. And we wanted to investigate the non-financial or purely emotional benefits that people gain from work. So we developed this definition of emotional salary: the subjective non-financial gains we obtain from working that motivate us, change our perception of work, and lead to personal and professional development. Now, we set out to research exactly what it was that constituted emotional salary. We knew that although emotional salary was subjective, there would be certain elements that were important to everyone. And looking at prior research that had been done in this area, we had a good idea of what they were probably going to be. We started by running focus groups to explore what non-financial or emotional benefits people were getting from their work. And through this process, we identified 10 discrete factors, which I'll share with you a little later in today's session. Now, the next stage of our research was to investigate how we could measure emotional salary. And we developed a questionnaire-based tool that we could use to measure the 10 factors and their relative importance to an individual. And to test the reliability and validity of the tool, we undertook a pilot study in 2 languages, in English and in Spanish. And we had just more than 200 individual respondents of around 20 different nationalities in different countries. And what I'd like to do now is just share some very brief highlights of that research. So let's start with gender. Now, do you think men or women have higher emotional salary? Well, in our research, there was no significant difference when it came to gender. And what about age? We found that emotional salary generally increases with age. What we did find, however, was there is a dip around about the age of 50, which didn't come as a huge surprise to us given prior research. Now, given that the study encompassed 2 languages and more than 20 different nationalities, what cultural differences do you think we found in our research? Well, one of the most interesting things we discovered was that there was a difference between the English-speaking and Spanish-speaking respondents. Now, Spanish-speaking respondents, the level of education had an impact on their emotional salary. Those with a higher level of education tended to have a higher emotional salary, and we didn't see the same pattern in the English-speaking respondents. Now, we believe that there's definitely scope to explore many of these elements and others in further research. One thing that we feel it is important to note is that when we work with organisations to measure emotional salary in an organisational setting, we tend to see very clear trends and patterns, which are obviously closely related to the leadership and culture of the organisation. In an organisational setting, emotional salary can be used to give very clear insights about organisational culture. It can be used as a good predictor of organisational culture. Now, what I'd like to share with you is what we discovered as a result of our research, our focus groups and discussions, and our initial pilot study in terms of the 10 factors that we identified. Now, you're going to see some things that are very familiar to you, and indeed many things that some of the other presenters today have been talking about. Autonomy. So autonomy is about the freedom to manage your working style, projects and time. Belonging. This is about feeling connected, appreciated and valued at work. Creativity, which is about the exploration, development and expression of original ideas. Direction, which is about being able to co-create a fulfilling career path. Enjoyment, having fun and authentic social interactions at work. Inspiration, having a sense of possibility and gaining new insights. Mastery, working towards achieving true excellence in your work. Personal growth, which is about gaining self-awareness and developing as a human being. Professional growth, which is about developing your professional talents, skills and abilities. And last, but certainly not least, purpose. And this is about feeling that your work has meaning and that you're contributing to something bigger. So why is emotional salary important? From the research and work that we've done, we know that emotional salary is a huge part of our fulfillment at work. As individuals, the 10 factors can be used as a framework to help us develop an awareness of what's important for us and to help us answer the question, why do we work? Now, that awareness can lead to greater fulfillment at work, but how? Well, the thing to bear in mind here is awareness is the foundation for change. With awareness, you can start to take a much more active role in your career development. You can take decisions to enable you to thrive at work, and you can take control of your work instead of letting your work control you. When your emotional salary is high, you're likely to be more motivated, engaged, and productive in what you do because your emotional needs are being met. You'll be more fulfilled. But it's important not to get too comfortable. Our emotional salary isn't static. There are many things that will impact it, so you do need to continue to pay attention to it, to maintain it, to work on it on a regular basis. But it's also really important to recognise when your emotional salary is low, because that awareness will help you to create a roadmap and help you plan what you need to do to create greater fulfillment in your work. As a leader, developing an awareness of your own emotional salary will give you much greater insights into how you can help others to maintain and increase their emotional salary. As an organisation, using emotional salary as a framework will enable you to build a culture where the emotional well-being of your employees is at the centre of what you do. Focusing on emotional salary enables you to identify those factors that are impacting on your employees. By identifying what's valued most by employees and using that information to take concrete action, you can give your employees greater power over their emotional well-being at work. Now, we don't know with any certainty what the labour framework of the future will look like or how it will be structured. But I think we can be fairly certain of one thing. The well-being of individuals is absolutely crucial to be able to face the challenges that we're likely to see over the coming years. Organisations want to succeed. They must become a platform for growth for their employees. And if employees want to thrive, they must take responsibility for their emotional salary. And in this way, what we can have are these two very powerful forces working together to achieve a mutually beneficial objective: organisational and individual growth. So, one of the most valuable outcomes we see when we start to focus on our emotional salary is the shift in how we perceive our work. Purely by becoming aware of emotional salary, we can start to appreciate much more what we have or recognise what we don't have. We can start to understand that our emotional salary is not fixed, but it's fluid, it's constantly changing, and it can be impacted by many different things, from a new manager or colleague, a change in an organisational process, working with a different client. Now, this change in our attention and our intention can start to shift our perception of our work. This shift in perception leads to empowerment. There's a realization that we have control and that opportunities exist for us to increase our fulfillment at work. We can accept that our actions will have an impact on our emotional salary, and this encourages us to take responsibility. When organisations embrace emotional salary, it facilitates a culture of co-creation. Organisations working with employees to create an environment where emotional salary fulfillment, and employee well-being is high. Now, we've come to the part where I'd like you to grab a pen and a piece of paper. For this activity, I'm going to share with you a simple way you can start to explore your emotional salary by looking at each of the 10 factors. I want you to think about how each of these factors show up for you on a day-to-day basis at work. I'm going to remind you of the 10 factors and give you an example to help you. And I want you to give each of the factors a score out of 10. Now, 10 means you have as much of the factor as you need. And so that means that the lower the score, the less you currently have of that factor in your work. Let's start with professional growth. So thinking about your work, do you have the opportunity to develop your professional talent, skills and abilities at work? Give yourself a score out of 10. Now we'll move on to personal growth. Does your work enable you to gain self-awareness and develop as a human being? Again, score yourself out of 10. What about purpose? Do you feel that your work has meaning for you? Do you feel that it contributes to something bigger in the organisation and wider? Now we'll move on to mastery. Do you have the opportunity to pursue excellence in your work? Then autonomy. Can you manage your own tasks, projects and your own time? Now enjoyment. Do you have fun and authentic social interactions at work? And what about your sense of belonging? Do you feel appreciated and valued? Do you feel a sense of connection with your team, the people that you work with? The next factor is creativity. Can you be creative and original in the way that you do your work? Next is direction. Does your work give you the opportunity to create a fulfilling career path? And finally, inspiration. Does your work give you a sense of possibility? Is your work aligned with your values? Now, just by giving yourself a score out of 10, you can immediately start to see which factors you're getting less of in your work. And the next step is to decide how important each of those factors are for you. So, by identifying which factors you're getting more and less of and deciding how important each of those are, we can easily identify where we need to start to increase our fulfillment at work. We can understand where to put our energy, attention, and intention. So the final thing for us to look at today is the impact process. Now, the aim of this summit is to give you a toolbox for a changing world. And with that in mind, I'd just like to share with you the impact process that you can put in your toolbox to increase your emotional salary. And this will take the awareness that you can get from the exercise that we've just done and translate it into action to ensure that your work has more of a positive impact on your life. Firstly, self-awareness. Identify the emotional benefits you're getting from your work. Ask yourself which emotional benefits you're missing. And you can use the 10 factors of emotional salary for this. Then self-determination. Be proactive. Look for opportunities to get more of what you want. What actions or decisions do you need to take to get more of what you need? And lastly, social awareness. What conversations do you need to have that will enable you to grow and to increase your fulfillment? And finally, take responsibility, and take control. Now, there are likely to be certain elements that impact our fulfillment at work that we can't control. The key is to focus on what we can control. We can control our attitude, our mindset. We can't control other people, but we can control how we respond to them. We spend around 90,000 hours, or 1/3 of our lives, working, and we owe it to ourselves to do everything in our power to make that time as fulfilling as possible. Thank you. If you would like more information about our research, I'd love to share it with you. So please do get in touch with me either by email or via LinkedIn.